TKM Incorporated in Moss, Tennessee is a construction company that specializes in erosion control, seeding, and soil, hydroseeding, hydromulch, minor excavation, and silt fence. They also provide traffic control and construction signs. Their business is keeping people safe, but their passion, their mission, is they wish that all men could be saved. TKM has adopted the nickname the King's Men because as they serve you, they also serve the King. If they could provide any of their services for you, please contact them at 931-243-3958. That is 931-243-3958. Or you can contact them on the net at tkminc2001@twlakes.net. That is tkminc2001@twlakes.net. TKM Incorporated is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. SJ&L General Contractor specializes in asphalt, demolition, concrete finishing, and heavy hauling. This family-owned business is licensed in Alabama and Tennessee. You can contact them for any of your construction needs, 931-433-4660. That is 931-433-4660, or 3Ws and a dot, sjnl.com, www.sjnl.com. SJ&L General Contractor is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. In the days before there was a ropes course, and in the days before there was a Wile E. Coyote slingshot, we did climbing demonstrations the old-fashioned way. We risked our lives. I remember going in to some of these places to demonstrate climbing and rappelling and actually climbing the steel girders in order to hang the ropes in the rafters. I remember going in and balancing precariously on ladders that we had set up in order to get things done. We had this ladder that reached all the way to the middle rafter at Lakewood Elementary, and we would climb up there and balance on the I-beam and then attach our safety lines to a steel cable that we had installed. We did this demonstration over at I think it was Chapman Elementary, and we literally had Jerry Tanner lead climb across an I-beam. He climbed up the side post, the vertical post, and then he got inverted on this H-beam or this I-beam, and as he went out across the gym, he was putting a sling around the beam and with a carabiner and clipping to it, and he would put one and go about a body length and put another and go a body length, and he did an actual lead inverted across the entire span of the gymnasium, and he was building his own anchor system as he went across. Well, I was at Uplift. This is a summer camp that used to be hosted by Harding University, and I assume they still do it. I just haven't been in years. And I was teaching an encounter class. Now, an encounter class is simply that. Instead of going in and then having a lecture, instead of going in and doing a Bible study, it's experience-based. You go do a demonstration, you play a game, you have the children participate in some kind of activity. And the site for my encounter class was the new gym. Now, that was back in the days when the new gym was actually new at Harding. And it's this massive, big room with this super high ceiling, and I was going to do a rope demonstration. And so I got into the maintenance corridor and climbed these metal steps and came out of this door that was up at the top of the ceiling of the gym on a catwalk. And I had to access this I-beam, this 4-inch I-beam or an H-beam, and I climbed up onto the guardrail, and I secured myself to a metal pipe. And I don't know if it was a water pipe or a steam pipe or an electrical conduit pipe, but I'm balancing up here on this railing, and I've got myself clipped in with a tether, and I installed 2 ropes. One rope went from the top of that gym all the way to the bottom, and it was a single strand of rope. It was a Hauser-laid rope, a twisted rope, and it's probably 1.5 inches to a 2-inch diameter rope. It looks like a big battle rope, or it looks like one of those ropes you see people climb in the CrossFit gyms. And then the second thing that I did was I put a piece of webbing It was a circle, and I looped it over the beam so it was like a basket. And then I put 2 carabiners on the bottom, and I put a doubled rope there. This was going to be the safety rope. And then simply because I was up there, I clipped in and rappelled down to the floor. And so when the students came in, they were confronted with this big white rope hanging from floor to ceiling in the gymnasium. And we simply said, hey, we would give anybody the opportunity that wanted to see how high they could climb, the ability to climb the rope. And the way this thing worked is the climber would put on a harness, and we would connect the climber to the doubled rope. And so the rope connects to the climber, goes up to the ceiling through the 2 carabiners, and comes back down to me. And it fits into a belay device or a friction device in my harness. And so as the students would climb up the rope, I could pull up their slack. And then at any point that they ran out of juice, or they ran out of steam, or they just felt like, hey, I'm way too high, they could just simply stop, and I would lower them to the ground. And so we're doing this with this group, and we're talking about anchor points and strength and different things. And then finally we offered them up, and I don't know if you would call it a contest, but we just simply said, how long do you think you can hold on to this rope? And we'll give everybody a chance. We made a mark, had a piece of tape on the rope, and so we want you to get to this point, and then we want you to hang on to this rope as long as you can. And so we had several volunteers, and of course you've got a mixed group of students, and in the mixed group of students you have boys and girls, and boys are going to show off for girls. And then these teenage boys have this ridiculous body to weight ratio, and their fat content, they have 0% body fat, and so it's ridiculous how strong these guys are. We hooked the first kid up, and he climbs the rope, and he's got the rope wrapped around his legs, and he's holding the rope, and he's got both hands on the rope, and his arms are bent and flexed. And maybe a minute into this thing, he starts to slip. His legs start to give way, and he can't keep himself in this position. And so out of frustration and failure, he just lets go, swings away. We lower him to the ground. And this repeats itself. And some guys are just hanging by their arms, and some guys are dead hanging, with their arms straight, and some guys are hanging with their arms bent. And then, we might have got a guy who could hang on that rope for maybe a minute and a half. I don't really remember the exact times. Well, eventually it's time to make the point. Eventually it's time to do the demonstration for what it's there for. And so we get this little girl, and I asked her, she didn't volunteer. I said, I'm going to ask you to do this for us. And she says, I'm not very strong and I don't climb ropes. So that's cool. And so she puts the harness on, and she is so weak that she can't even climb the rope. We have to get a couple of boys to pick her up to the place where we've got the rope marked. And just before they picked her up, I whispered into her ear. I said, regardless of what happens, and regardless of how you feel, do not let go of this rope. And so up the rope she goes. I set the belay device, and she's hanging there, and she's hanging there. And in just a few minutes, you see it kind of come across her face that she realizes, I'm not holding myself up. This guy is holding me up, and it's almost like nobody else knows it. And then she looked down from the rope and says, all I have to do is hold the rope? And I grinned and said, all you have to do is hold the rope. And she put the rope between her forefinger and her thumb, and she pushed it away from her, and she extended her other arm like a ballerina, and she straightened her legs and crossed them at the ankles, and she floated there in the air above the floor of the gymnasium like a ballerina fairy. And the catcalls began. She's cheating. She's not doing it right. She's not holding herself up. This is a foul. This is unfair. And I said, wait. What are the rules of the game? I asked you to see how long you could hold on to the rope. You interpreted that as, how long can I hold myself up in the air holding on to the rope? And you let go. When you got tired, you let go. When you got weary, you let go. When you got discouraged, and you let go when your strength failed. That's not what this demonstration is about. This demonstration is about the fact that if you do what I've asked you to do and you will hold on to the rope, and yeah, it feels unfair. It doesn't seem reasonable. It doesn't seem right that she's not gripping the rope with both hands, or she's not gripping the rope with her full hand, or she's not got her legs wrapped around the rope. But the parameters I gave you was just simply don't let go of the rope. And you don't get to judge her on her grip. The style of her grip, the strength of her grip, the size of her grip. The only thing that you get to judge is whether or not she's held onto the rope or not. And I think sometimes we are so uncomfortable with grace. We're so uncomfortable with the fact that we're really not doing any of the work. We're so uncomfortable with the fact that it looks like that somebody's doing it for us, that we can't wrap our minds around the fact that that's what grace is about. God doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves. God providing for us what we could never provide. And we're so uncomfortable with the concept of grace because we want to be the person to do it. We want to be the person to earn it. We want to be the person that says, look what I've done, look what I've accomplished, and look how strong I am. And really what it's about is this little girl floated in the air above this gymnasium, and we let her stay up there for about 5 minutes, just crushing the record that the other boys had done. And yes, she was not doing any of the work. She was simply obeying. And when we understand that faith and grace is not about our work, but simply about our obedience, then we understand the strength is not in our grip and our ability to hold ourselves, but in God's willingness to hold us as long as we simply hold on. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707. 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3W's and a dot, worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. I am your host, Lonnie Jones. My wife Jackie and I moved to the city of Huntsville in 1986 for me to be a youth and family minister. I have been a minister since 1980. I have served in this community as a police chaplain assigned to a SWAT team since 1992, and I've been in private practice as a licensed professional counselor since 1998. I'm also an adventure educator and an avid outdoorsman. I dabble in rock climbing and I goof around with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Our life has been full of many wonderful experiences and some just outright adventures. I used to write about those things in a little church bulletin article. So now instead of asking you to read those things, we're just going to talk about them in our podcast. And as we talk about them, we're going to talk about the facts. The facts lead to concepts, and the concepts lead to application. One caveat about the facts is, for the most part, we're going to tell you the facts just as they happened. But every now and then, we're going to tell you the way other people have told us they remember it happening with a little bit of embellishment. It's all good, clean fun and for educational purposes. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy Keeping Up with Jones.